So I've been considering a new hairdo. Two problems. One, I couldn't attend that Christian academy. And two, I'm bald and don't really have any hair anyway. Let's discuss it. Talk to him, Bruce.
I said, empty your mind. Be formless, shapeless, like water. Now you put water into a cup, it becomes the cup. You put water into a bottle, it becomes the bottle. You put it in a teapot, it becomes the teapot. Now water can flow or it can crash. Be water, my friend.
Hey y'all, let me introduce you to this young man named CJ. He lives in Apoka, Florida, and he was actually going to be starting his first day of first grade last week at a private school, a Christian private school named A Books Christian Academy. Unfortunately for this young man, his first day turned out pretty disastrous and he was not able to attend this school. According to this headline, the school rejected him for simply having dreadlocks, and the insinuation on the bottom is perhaps it was simply because he was black. And so I want to actually bring in what the father was saying so that we can see exactly what's happened here.
My son just got told he cannot attend the school with his hair. If that's not bias, I don't know what is.
So at this point, with just this amount of information and this headline, we could rightfully conclude that this school is definitely biased and possibly racist against black kids, especially black kids with culturally appropriate hair. So I guess at this point, it's hashtag free CJ, hashtag let the dreads fly. And is this appropriate? Is it right to go and really drum up the mob and let people know about this racism? Or perhaps there's more to the story. Well, I want to go through the process in which I do things. I want to talk about how when I see something trending, when I see a story that is starting to catch on like wildfire, I want to get to the source, and I'd like to find out what the deal is. Is there more than just simple bias and racism, or is it something more? And so I have to find a decent source of reporting, and surprisingly enough, despite the headline, this Washington Post story actually gives a pretty decent account of it. I'll actually link to the whole report in the description below. With regards to the headline, anytime you see the words fundamentalist and whatever religion, you automatically think of crazed lunatics that just have really backwards, regressive thinking. And so that's why I said that I think that this headline is somewhat problematic to the narrative and kind of leads the readers into a certain mindset before they even know any of the facts. But let's go ahead and delve into this story. So according to CJ's father, he recalls that the actual head of the school, who's the reverend of the church, stopped him and said take him home and take him to get his hair cut. However, the Sue book said that they actually talked in the office and she was the one to explain to him that they have rules and the dress code is part of those rules. You'll actually hear in this next clip the account where you'll hear in the background the woman telling him that it's in the handbook and he received it quite a while ago.
It's very disrespectful and biased. I should have been told this months ago.
And sure enough, here it is. I'm not even a parent, yet I could find their handbook and objectively look at it and say no dreads, and the hair must be tapered, cut off the collar and ears. So objectively speaking, this has been their policy since 1971. Of course, why let facts get in the way of a good story about racism? So everything is stupid. Look at the last line of this particular portion of the article. I've never had to talk with my child about race until now. And I guess Barack Obama can take credit for impacting this father because, first of all, as a black man, he stayed to take care of his child, which is awesome. And he's also going to go with Barack's second favorite activity, which is community organizing. And to be fair, they say that they're going to discuss discrimination policies. Well, it is true that this particular school and others like it are definitely discriminating. However, I do not believe it's upon the lines in which they're drawing, because it says that these discrimination policies are targeting specifically black hair and black children. Interesting fact, this particular school has 95% African American attendance. So what's the difference between CJ and all the other black children that are at this particular school? Well, those black children valued their education to the point where they said, if all I have to do is cut my hair and conform to your dress code and grooming standards, then that's important to me. Another part of the story is the fact that it said that the police would have been called, and on this report it says 5 sheriff's deputies had come by on the second day of classes, and it was reported that a protest was expected at the front of the school at any moment. And you might be asking, what's the big deal about some protesters? Well, usually when you have these hot button made up racial stories, the protest usually turns into So the children were asked if they were happy. They said yes, ma'am. And they were also asked, does color matter to them? And the children said no, ma'am. And finally they asked, what is my rule about children of different colors? And finally these kids answered and said it really doesn't matter. And I find this interesting. The parents are getting in uproars and all these adults are getting in uproars. You ask the children at this actual school that is allegedly racist and they tell you, nope, race ain't an issue. And here's another interesting tidbit. The dad was talking about his son's response. His son basically said, Dad, that was just this morning. Why are we still talking about it? The dad, however, was trying to say how hard it was to explain and that it's something that was very important to talk about, and was basically trying to say, you don't understand right now. You'll understand when you get older. And I find it interesting in this story that the kids that are in the school, they're not tripping on anything racially. The kid himself, who was allegedly being, I don't even know, racially profiled or whatever you want to call it, even the way he looks at it is not over the top. He's pretty reasonable about it. So when I see things like memes of 2 children hugging each other of different races and people saying that hatred is learned, it's not in us from the beginning, I would have to say that's true. And I would say that this is a perfect example. These children have not been tainted yet. When the father has said that, you know, he'll learn later as he grows. Well, yeah, as you inculcate him with hatred of white people and hatred of this country, sure, he'll definitely learn that, you know, this country's quote unquote racist. And so this is definitely the problem as I see it, that, you know, you have to sit there and teach your children to look for these things as opposed to simply letting them live their life and having experiences for themselves. Another problem we're having here is that these are local stories. I dare anybody to open up a map and without typing it in, find a polka on a map in Florida. You can't do it. You have no idea where this place is, what the local makeup is of anything. And part of the reason is because of people like this. Good old Sean King, always there to make sure to, monetize and put out all kind of misinformation or biased information about these incidents that are, like I said, local in nature, yet they take on a national scale. And then people will say, well, this is examples of systemic racism in this nation, or institutionalized racism. And really all it is a private school with their own rules that have decided how they want to conduct themselves, and they would like their kids that they're teaching to conduct themselves. And a parent has the right to not send their kid there. And what's the result of Sean King and other race baiters running out there with this story, acting as if this is racism in America and something has to be done? Well, this kind of stuff. I mean, death threats, really? Now, it's funny to me because I keep seeing stories about anything that happens negatively towards the press or towards minorities. Automatically, it's Donald Trump's fault because Donald Trump says things. Well, what happens when people like Sean King and others get up there, say things on Twitter? They have, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of retweets, and then people decide that they're going to threaten and possibly do something at this school. Florida is already having problems with school shooters and whatnot. So what's going to happen if something were to happen to the school? If a bomb actually went off at this school, would Sean King be hauled off to jail as a co-conspirator or a person that inspired somebody to do something and target this school? No. So my thing is this: are you adding something positive to the discourse? Are you actually looking and saying anything that is positive that could be taken as good or have a good action behind it? No, you're not. So in light of that, I'm actually going to leave you with some positive news. The way that CJ actually got into this school is because he's in the state of Florida, and Florida has something called the school choice rules. And essentially what that does is it gives vouchers to parents to be able to send their kids to whatever school they would like, whatever school best suits them, even if it's public school. And so they actually use a voucher to sign them up for this particular school. And so in that way, it's a positive thing. Education is always the way out of poverty, and it's just a positive situation overall. So support school choice and look more into it. And I hope that you didn't just jump to the conclusion that this was obvious racism. And I'm not trying to discount CJ's embarrassment and his hurt feelings. I'm simply saying this does not rise to the level of a march on Washington. Anyway, y'all, have a blessed day, and thanks for watching.